So welcome everybody, Backup Monster Show. Welcome after the break, summer break. So hope you are all fine. And today we have a great opportunity to speak with Alan Conboy. Alan, are you there?
I am. Good to talk to you again.
Yes, sir. So our main goal today is to speak a little bit about the scale computing, but more strictly about the hyperconverged infrastructure. This is our main topic, and we'll of course discuss and deep dive a little bit. What about this edge computing these days? So we have 45 to 1 hour discussion. I'm really excited because we started the cooperation like we started the conversation like a year ago, and looks really promising. Storware and Scale Computing. We'll talk about it later on, uh, but it's I'm just a host, so you are the guest. So definitely, I would like to get introduction for yourself and speak a little bit about what's your story, Alan.
Oh, my story. It's an interesting one. Well, as interesting as anybody's story actually is. I've been in this industry, oh Lord, since the early years of the Clinton administration here in the States. Pushing close to 30 years now. Focused heavily on storage, on compute, on virtualization, really focused on how can I bring technologies that people are going to need in the future that disrupts complexity, that makes life easier for companies, for sysadmins, that makes things more consumable and approachable by folks.
hmm You said disrupt the complexity, and I believe this is a great example why actually the hyperconverged appeared uh, on the market. Um, when you have when you actually first time heard about this sentence like hyperconverged infrastructure.
When I heard about it first, well,
Yeah.
that's when Arun Tanaja coined the term in a meeting specifically to describe our prototypes over here. Um, it's a fun story where hyperconverged as a term and as a real platform actually came from, and it's not one that's well known in the industry. It's a concept I had been playing with for years, since probably 2005. Why was virtualization so incredibly complex, expensive? Why did it have so many moving parts from different vendors that all had to play nice together? And I had been toying with this notion that it didn't need to be that way, that you shouldn't need to reach out for storage, you shouldn't need to reach out for various other pieces, but rather you should be able to merge the hypervisor itself as a kernel module directly into the running kernel of a highly available storage platform so that you wouldn't need to go external for storage. Well,
hmm
amusingly enough, one night back in, late 2010, two of my five children got sick with the flu and kept me up half the night. I finally got them to sleep, got them to bed, and decided, you know what? I'm tired of just thinking about this. So I came down here to my lab and decided to give it a go. I did, was successful, and in that moment, hyperconvergence was born. You know, matter of weeks later, we took those prototypes to a now retired analyst in Boston, Arun Tanaja. And over the course of 13 some odd hours in a meeting that went on forever, Arun coined the term hyperconverged specifically to describe what it was that we were doing here with a platform that we called HC3. So, yeah, I know about hyperconvergence since the very beginning. The original prototypes for it are literally right there.
This is quite curious. I just wanted to ask here because you said I came to my lab, so I understand that you are right now at home.
I
Uh,
am.
okay,
I
so
absolutely am.
So you actually, during the night when your kids were sick, sit
Mhm.
down and figure it out that you can connect the compute, storage, networking into the
Mhm.
one single server with this scale-out architecture.
Yes, absolutely. And yes,
2010,
yeah,
because
about 2010.
to be honest, the problem is that the first time when I heard about the hyperconverge is, it's all about from the sales perspective and marketing. It's all about the Nutanix, and Nutanix
Mhm.
saying we've been the first. And honest question: how do you feel when you hear such a sentence? Yes, we've been from
So,
the beginning.
even from the beginning, if we go back to when Nutanix launched at VMworld, and so did Scale with the HC3 platform, is what we called it at the time. The Nutanix guys, they called themselves Server SAM, and that's essentially what they are. They're a good bunch of guys, and it's a good product. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
Mhm.
sitting here trying to throw shade on them. But at the end of the day, Scale Computing's approach and Nutanix approach are two very, very different things. Honestly, I kind of wish that we had copyrighted the term hyperconverged at this point, because pretty much everybody in the industry kind of grabbed onto the term and ran with it, including Nutanix. I'm moderately sure I saw a hyperconverged toaster the other day. But at the end of the day, scale computing is where the concept of hyperconverged computing was born.
Beauty. So 2000, so you said 2010, but
Mhm.
lately you let's say celebrate the 10th years of the hyperconverged. So I understand that you needed 2 years to actually go from your concept into the real product.
So, how do I want to put this, Merrick? When you want to do something like we've done at scale with hyperconverged infrastructure, what you're really wanting to do is take multiple very difficult disciplines and make them easy enough that anybody can use them, anybody can approach them. That you don't need to be a VCP and a CCNE and a SNIA certified storage engineer, but rather a manager at a grocery store, a dock worker, a guy on a ship can use that platform. You take very difficult, complex things and you do what is really the very hard work of making them easy. And that takes a little bit of time. Now, we recently, as you mentioned, celebrated our 10-year anniversary of hyperconverged infrastructure. We turned around and launched our then titled HC3 platform at VMworld in 2012. Now, as
Okay.
a side note, if you ever have the opportunity to design from the ground up an entire virtual infrastructure, okay, from whole cloth, from a clean sheet of paper, and not use VMware code of any kind anywhere in any of the stacks because, well, to be honest, vCenter simply and VM kernel simply couldn't do what we needed it to do. Um, and then turn around and launch it at VMware's flagship show, do it. You won't be invited back, but it's an awful lot of fun.
No, nice one. I was also one of the prelegents on one of the VMware World, but then I, had some Open Virtualization Pro webinar, and we designed the KVM work shirts. And then I did not get another invitation. I don't know why. Uh, but I said the KVM.
Mhm.
We have one thing. I believe we have more. But one thing similar in our DNA is when I'm, see the scale computing and the Storware actually, and
Mhm.
both of us are CDOs. So both of us design something from what was in our head into the real code. Fortunately, without our hands, I cannot write in any code. Fortunately, because it could be a disaster.
I'm right with you right there.
I got
You
some
don't want
knowledge,
to
but
see my code.
better give this chance to the better people than myself. But
Absolutely.
coming back to the KVM, you chose KVM as a major virtualization engine, and we
Mhm.
know exactly that in 2010 you have different choices. You could choose a Zen, you could choose a VMware, or even you could go to the Microsoft and think about the Hyper-V itself. Um, we did the same. We started with the KVM as a
Mhm.
major virtualization engine that we would like to protect because we've seen a huge value in this engine. But
Oh
it's not
yeah.
about us today. Let's get the answer from you. Why KVM?
Well, KVM is because it makes perfect sense. The efficiency that you gain with the KVM in-kernel based approach does so very many things for you. I mean, Lord, you can even look back to that same time frame at IBM's white paper of the time, which defined from an efficiency perspective how you could, oh Lord, how do I want to say this? For every 3 VMs you could run on a given set of hardware under ESXi, you could run 5 with KVM. At the end of the day, KVM just makes perfect sense. Now, I used to get a whole lot of questions about, you know, where do you actually see KVM? I don't see it. Well, the simple truth of the matter is anybody that had ever done a Google search up to that point, anybody that ran any of many switches at that point, anybody who had done any of many things at that point had used KVM without even knowing it. It was inarguably the most used, least known hypervisor there is.
Because
So,
all the market thinks it's all about the Hyper-V and a VMware, and this is
mm,
like you said, it's like niche player which is not available in the mind that is it's working. It's like Java in early days, I believe, but of course it's everything changed. Uh,
mhm.
so the speed of the virtualization engine and what and open source, man. Did you didn't have the, let's say, uh you haven't been scared that, okay, what if this open source project goes in the wrong direction? It will
Mhm.
amplify your product it in the end. Yes.
Oh, that's the thing. I honestly wasn't worried about that because it's an open source product. We have 100% unfettered access to the bowels of the code that makes both the Linux kernel and KVM what they are. Now, everybody else can go in a completely different direction, and that doesn't mean we're stranded.
Mhm.
Unlike VM kernel in the VMware world, if they choose to make changes that would dramatically impact how we work, there's not much we could do about that. I didn't want to be beholden to the whims of another company that could eventually be bought by Broadcom, lock, stock, and two smoking barrels.
Li- like it. So you put everything, so KVM based, your kernel based approach that allowing you to doing a scale out architecture for all of the viewers right now. In
Mm-hmm.
HCI, hyperconverged is all about to adding the new boxes. So you have a really easy option to scale out without thinking about the storage itself, networking, or the compute. Everything is all in one, just adding. I'm just curious, how much time you needed to get the first customer after this VMware event?
So, interestingly enough, and this is a story that's only known by a handful of people. At the time, we were working on this in the background. Okay. Prototypes had been created, proof of concepts had been done, all of that. But at the time we were working on this, I chose to go visit a partner of ours, a reseller partner of ours, who asked me to accompany him to meet with a prospective customer of his. Now, this prospective customer was looking at the traditional 3-2-1 architecture. 3 servers, 2 switches, somebody's SAN, plus VMware. Okay. And that's a fairly well-known approach, especially at the time. It's a fairly well-known cost. So I closed the door to the room, asked everybody but the customer and myself to leave, looked him in the eye and said, what if I could make about half of this cost go away? Just disappear. What if I could make it an order of magnitude easier? It took him less than 3 minutes to say, sign me up. That first customer was actually a resort in Branson, Missouri, of all places. Without knowing it, they're the first people to ever run an actual hyperconverged infrastructure because it just made perfect sense for them.
So definitely the economics go with the technology here.
Oh, absolutely.
But so that was the first one. I know that you scale to the 1,000 of the different customers worldwide. That's why we also like the your philosophy, your approach, simplified usage of the HCI. But what about the next steps? When we started the conversation between our companies, you said, "Okay, Paweł, let's figure it out and speak more about the edge computing, because the data center is well known for the most." Or when you speak with your customers and saying, "Okay, we got the really good bunch of the technology that stays on the server. What about the remote branches, and what about the data on the edge?" Because I'm a little bit this is a question, because everybody's saying the edge doesn't work, everything is right now into the cloud. So I would like to hear from you, what's your statement and how you see actual the vision from the scale going into the edge computing as a next step of the company.
Absolutely. It's funny, while everybody was arguing over what the edge is, Scale's been actively selling into it for, 5.5 years now. Now, I'm going to back up a tiny bit and then move forward into fleshing out the answer to your question. Understand that we focused on the needs of everybody who's often overlooked: the SMB, the mid-market, the K-12 school districts and colleges, the places where you didn't have a fleet of guys with acronyms behind their names on business cards, but you had guys whose business card said IT guy, and he was having to wear so very many different hats. He needed an infrastructure that allowed him to not have to think about his infrastructure. Made easy, right? And we focused on that segment for years. Well, let's fast forward. Let's talk about edge for a moment and what edge is. Edge is where people actually do things. I don't know about you, but I have never formed a widget. I have never poured foundry steel. I have never, mined for oil and gas in an AWS data center. Because the cloud, the data center, that's not where people actually do things. But where people actually do things is where data is really created. Okay? Now, that edge, which defined as where people actually do stuff out in the world, that is because it's where data is created. That's where you don't have those VCPs and CCNEs and SNIA certified storage engineers. You have those store managers, you have those ships captains, and so on and so forth. Well, we had already built a product specifically for that guy for years. But we'd done it in such a way that, unlike the other folks that followed after us and kind of glommed onto the term hyperconverged, we had done it in such a way that we only consumed a fraction of the resources that they do. So while they were busy thinking of, let's go to 6,000 nodes in a cluster or whatever ridiculous number, we were thinking in terms of we can fit on not just the large data center, but on things as small as the Intel compute card or element, the NUC. We can fit our entire stack unmodified on things that you can fit in your pocket. For example, the HE150, literally a top to bottom full stack hyperconverged node, 4 inches square. I can literally pick it up and take it with me. With every single
Do
one
not
of the
take on a holiday, please. And you need how many nodes? You need 3 nodes. I understand.
You
To
can
run
start with as little as 1.
Okay, so you can start with the 1, so 4 inches.
4 inches square. And boy, we've got some fun stuff cooking with Intel that'll shift that paradigm even once again.
Okay, you will not tell today on Back on
Not
Master
today.
Shell. We'll look for some news. So the small box, I understand this is for the staff without the huge knowledge in IT. So this is for them. So just plug and play and run a bunch of virtual machine or the other workloads that they need to run. Yes, I understand.
Yeah, it's you can run your virtual machines, containers, etc. But when you look at the edge, okay, whether it's the retail edge, the Aldi's or Delhaize grocery store chains that are, thousands and thousands of sites, or the Home Depots of the world, or the Menards, you're not talking about 1 or 2 of these. You're talking about, 3 of these at 10,000 different locations. So one of the things that we've done to facilitate that is created what we call the SC Platform Fleet Manager. Single pane of glass that allows you to zero-touch provision and roll out workloads and manage, 10,000 sites by one guy sitting at one keyboard. Made very, very simple. Okay, so it's more than just this guy, but it's our ability to implement this guy and make it so anybody can use it. Literally anybody, that grocery store manager who's the furthest thing on earth from a VCP, he's worried about his inventory control levels and keeping the 17-year-olds that work at the grocery store showing up for their shifts. Make it so that guy can use it. And then make it so that it makes sense across fleets. Done simple. When you merge truly efficient hyperconverged infrastructure with unbelievably capable edge hardware, you have something truly special.
I can see one problem. It's too small, so you can easily, forget where is it in your branch or in your fleet. So, but this is a good topic about the data protection part, where we actually align. So, what if we will lose the data? What if we'll lose the box? What if how to get the proper resiliency of the business continuity based on scale? And I would like to understand the approach, like without using the third party vendor like a Storware today. So what is the answer, and how you see the value to partnering with us?
Sure,
Where actually
absolutely.
the value is true for your partners, business partners, distributor, or the customers in the end.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a fair question. You see, when we built this architecture, okay, our storage stack is built to be clustered by definition. Okay. So unless you're running on a single node, your data is round robin chain declustered across all of the drives in all of the nodes in a cluster. So with a 3-node cluster of these, one can disappear entirely, go up in smoke, whatever. you've lost absolutely nothing, and everything's still up and running. Okay? And yes, we do build in replication. Any HC3 workload, any Scale platform workload can replicate to any other Scale platform to which it has a route. But as it relates to third parties in partnerships like Storware, okay, there are so many different layers that need to come to the table to ensure data protection that no one company can do it by themselves. Full stop. As monolithic and massive as even VMware is, they can't do it without their partners as well. Okay? You know, the bad guys, the black hats out there, they're always coming up with new and creative ways to lock you out of your data, to steal your data, to damage your infrastructure and hold you hostage. Always, every day, coming up with something new. So, a multi layered data protection strategy, backed up not only through snapshots and replication and site to site replication, but through partnerships like the one with Storware, where data can be put in isolation on different platforms, completely off platform, and easily, that's the key word, easily retrieved as needed, clean copies, etc. That's critical to anybody's implementation, whether you're at the edge, the fog, the core, or the cloud.
Great. And for you, when you're watching us, we have two different strategies. First one is using the native API, but the second one using the jailbreak tracking. So we can easily go in with the incremental forever approach with our synthetic backup. And to simplify the easy of use for both platforms, keeping the both solution a perfect match. So looking forward for more and more satisfied customers from the Scale and also the Storware field, because I also do trying to promote as many times as possible to show up and explain the philosophy that you are right now building. Coming back to the edge, I'm wondering what the others, the big players right now doing. Are they worried about the edge, or they just only think about the cloud itself? Uh, Came back to the cloud because I do still see that most of the people saying, should I be on the edge or on-prem, or should I go to the cloud? So the first question, how you see the other players on the field, what they are actually doing, if they are going with the same direction as you or in the opposite?
So that's an excellent question. This is an artifact of designing to go big. When I think of competitors in the HCI space, they built their infrastructures to chase they built their architectures, I should say, to chase the needs of the very large, almost web scale, if you will. And their design choices show that. Yep, let me go technical for a second here. When I look at one of my larger competitors, to be able to boot themselves up, they require a minimum of 24 gig of RAM and 12 vcores per node just to go from cold to running. That's it. Okay. You scale that across a 3-node cluster, that's 48 to 96 gig of RAM. In some cases, God help us, I've seen as much as 150 gig of RAM consumed by those guys just to start themselves up. And it's because of architectural choices that they made. Rather than starting with the storage stack and moving the kernel in, they chose to do the exact opposite. Virtualize the storage stack is in Java as a JVM, embed that in a virtual machine under different hypervisors, and then replicate a copy of it across every node in their cluster, which At the end of the day, that sucks up a huge amount of resource. Well, that architectural approach is precisely what keeps them from being able to go small. What I mean by that is, by taking the approach we did, we consume in total between 3 and 4 gig of RAM per node and 1/10 of one core. Heck, our platform can literally run an entire edge SMB mid-market data center, and the resources those guys require just to boot themselves up. So are they nervous about edge? Yeah, and for good reason. They physically can't get their platforms without completely re-architecting them down to fit in form factors that make sense at the edge. Now, you look at some of these guys and they're calling their 1 and 2U rack mount gear edge. It's not. That's their marketing teams in desperation. Now, you mentioned something else there, the second part, on-prem versus cloud. That's exactly the wrong way to think about it. Yep, 10, 11 years ago, everybody went running to the cloud and tried to push everything up there. And starting about 4 years ago, after those AWS or GCP or Azure bills started coming in earnest, they started realizing that a whole bunch of those workloads either don't perform well in the cloud, cost way more than they should, or just should never have gone there in the first place. So we've seen a huge amount of repatriation of some things back to on-premises. You know, email. Email's gone to the cloud, and it's never coming back. And that's a good thing. You know, Exchange administrators and SendMail administrators rejoice. You don't have to deal with that craziness anymore, and that's fine. Okay? But certain things happen where people do things out on foundry floors, out in the autonomous car world, in so very many places where the round trip latency of getting to and from a cloud not only doesn't make sense, it can get people killed. Okay? So the right way to be thinking about on-prem and cloud is like a toolbox. Use the right tool for the job. They're very complementary, actually. Yep. When you're wanting to do AI and analytics on video right there at the edge, where things get actionable, okay, you absolutely want a device sitting right there that can do that job in picoseconds to microseconds, right? But what these tiny devices don't do is tons and tons and tons of cheap and deep storage. But what does Wasabi and Google do amazingly well? Bottomless storage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Use the two together with your VMS, and suddenly you've got the best of both approaches in one solution.
The same I see from the backup and recovery perspective. Use the object storage as a secondary data for DR purposes, but do not think that in case of real data loss, you will be recovered really fast from the cloud. It should be your plan B, or at least plan B, but it actually should be the plan C. I would like to see the first recovery from your local storage, or actually the storage from your on-prem, because you have a control and all of the QoS what's going on. When we, for example, use the OneDrive, I tried many times for the many years, but it's so annoying that I don't have the actual guarantee of the transfer of the data, sending out and coming back. And remember that the cloud providers always, in most cases, get you additional money from the uploading, so downloading the transfer to you, so uploading from them. Wasabi changed it. So looking forward, and also we started the cooperation with them. But we need to also many times seeing that many backup vendors are also trying to convince go to the cloud as the only option. I don't see it as the best approach. So hybrid, both scenarios are the best, especially when you said about the autonomous cars and some data that they need to be, they need to rely on. Even if we have 5, 6, 7, 8G, it's still something that needs the long-term communication. It always can be go failed. uh, Adam, we lost you, so let's try to unmute. Oh,
Oddly
right
enough,
now.
it did lock me out there. You're not wrong. The speed of light is not just a good idea, it's the law, right? So even communication at the speed of light, from an autonomous car trying to determine whether that's a school bus or a reflection, by the time that datagram makes it from the car over the wireless carrier's infrastructure, across the open internet infrastructure to a remote data center, that datagram gets a decision made and an action sent and replied to at the speeds that car's traveling. Well, the occupants have already found out that that was a school bus. Quite frankly, cloud everything. Well, anybody trying to convince you of that is honestly just trying to sell you a cloud contract. Use the
Even
right
when
tool.
you see that even the AWS changed the way how they communicate. Year ago, my friend who was really loved with the AWS, the serverless, you are doing the old stuff, you're doing the infrastructure part. You shouldn't care about it because everything will be as right now as something like XAS, so Christmas as a service. But he said a year ago they started to talk about the hybrid approach. So
Mhm.
something changed. Somebody noticed that going only into the one direction is never the best choices. And what I also noticed, it's really hard to go from them because of the integration part. You're starting from the small footage, but they catch you from the different phases. It's good because it gives you a real ability to boost your business from the minutes or doing some hard things in hours. But we
Mhm.
need to be aware that in the end the billing can change drastically,
Oh,
and
and
because
has.
yeah, and on-prem, what I used to do and still believe, even if sometimes can be a pain in the ass from the numbers of the resources that you needed, the problems with the disk failures, etc. Because you need to carry it out about many things that you don't need to think in the cloud. But if you control it in the easiest way, that's why I really do love the hyperconverged approach, because you simplify all of the cons that they are
Mhm.
applied to the typical data centers. But I believe you can be more predict from the cost operation, uh, and I like the approach that you get rid of all of the complexity, and especially the human aspect, which is the problem worldwide, not only US or Poland, Europe, Asia. We have a less qualified people, or if we got them, they
Mhm.
are quite expensive to cover all of the things together. So if we'll do it and grab this complexity as a vendors to ourselves and
Mhm.
invest or to give and simplify the way how they can use it, uh, we will get the win-win scenario. Customers will get what they can concentrate, so that from on the business, and we'll have our growth as a company to provide really good stuff to them.
You've hit the nail right on the head. Okay. If you look back at that same 2009, 2010 timeframe where cloud was starting to really come on, and hyperconverged infrastructure was starting to rise at 2010, 11, 12, right? You realize something very quickly. Hyperconverged and cloud, what they really are is two separate answers to the exact same problem. Legacy on-premises infrastructure was complex and expensive. Okay? Hyperconverged solved it while letting you still keep your data. Right there in your hand, you can walk over and touch your infrastructure. Cloud solved it by giving you this seemingly, I don't even have to think about it, approach, which, based on the sheer number of cloud breaches that happen on a, daily, weekly, monthly basis, has shown that not thinking about it probably wasn't the best idea, right? Well, what people are starting to discover today is that with a properly designed hyperconverged infrastructure that uses the cloud the way the cloud should be used, using the hammer as a hammer and the screwdriver as a screwdriver, what you come up with is something that's the best of both worlds without the weaknesses of either. Hybrid really is the smart man's choice.
Also, I like what you said about the edge. So some guys or the companies will not concentrate on the edge because of the architectural decisions that they made 10 years plus. But it's also all about the educate our ecosystem where we work, that we should still invest in this area, which much more simplified technology that we can find, especially the companies like you and ours. But I would like to also catch you and ask about the future, because you said you started to talk about the edge 5 years ago. The cloud at HCI is a 10 plus. You started the conversation there. You said about a little bit of Intel, but I will not deep dive dig it here. But what the future will brings for you personally, as one of the people who carry on the vision for the Scale Computing company. So I'm trying to get a little bit hot stuff from you right now. So be
Sure.
prepared.
So, looking to the future. Okay. I'm going to start with the almost immediate future. Here in less than a week, we are going to formally launch our joint edge product with Intel Corporation, which Storware works fine with. It is the Intel Enterprise Edge Compute Edition, powered by Scale Computing. Now, we talked about the MOU and talked about that as a product a few months ago, but it formally launches to the world in a matter of days. And what that signifies is, rather than just an intrepid group of guys like Scale Computing seeing this vision for how edge computing really should be done, taking the best of the hyperconverged world, the best of cloud, and making that seamlessly joined together into a product that can fit in the palm of your hand, it signifies that the biggest of the big folks, the folks that power what I call work scale, which is the one thing that dwarfs web scale, have seen that as the wave of the future as well. Folks like Intel. Okay. To the point where they're willing to go, let's go and create that product that every single one of those large distributed enterprise companies needs, whether it's shipping companies in Taiwan and Korea, or it's oil drilling companies in the various gulfs around the world, or it's massive retail stores like a Hotel Hayes and Menards and Home Depot. Okay, so as we look to the future, expect to see much, much more of that. and growing rapidly. Now, bigger picture, longer term. At the end of the day, people want to think about and put their energy into doing the things that they're actually supposed to do. They don't want to have to think about infrastructure. So expect things like this, things like data protection, to become even more automated, even more seamless, and even more tightly integrated. Expect infrastructure to become, well, seamless and very easy, ubiquitous almost. Okay?
So more
And
automation, less work for the typical folks who are doing the administration, and more actually the algorithm in artificial intelligence in the end. I believe it will be the
absolutely.
part of the game.
Oh, absolutely. And I would say more automation, less distraction, less time being distracted by the extra. AI, analytics, etc. That's all part of automation. Automating the tedious so that the people that are actually doing things out there at the edge can do amazing things without having to worry about the infrastructure that supports it.
Great. So Alan, I believe we got all for today episode. So I would like to just encourage you that if you saw or heard us today, and if you would like to get more information regarding the hyperconverged infrastructure or how the Storware aligns to the with the scale computing to provide even better and robust data protection on the edge or in a data center, feel free to catch up us on the different social media. Alan is on LinkedIn and is replying on LinkedIn. Checked when we started to meet each other a year plus ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really thrilled because next time Alan will see in your headquarter. So first time face to face. So looking forward that in 2 weeks interval, we'll give a five and shake the hands. So I will also inform you who is watching us about this meeting. So great opportunity. Um,
Looking forward to it.
so I would like to thank you for your effort to share with us your insight. Actually, one of the beauty stories when you started the HCI project, like you said, in 2010. So I believe that everybody who's watching us should knows that Alan Conboy was one of the first, or even first guy, who set it up in their home lab and show to the world the philosophy, and right now still expand this philosophy through the scale computing company. So again, thank you, appreciate your time. uh, Anything you would like to add, Alan, from your point of view?
You know, it's hard to think of just one thing to add when there's so many possibilities in this world that we're in. Um, I honestly would probably say just keep your head up and keep focused on how to make things better across the board. Better for our administrators, make them so that they're able to, enjoy their weekends off, build
Yeah.
infrastructures that makes their life better. That's what matters.
Great. So, for all of you, stay safe. Have a great weekend. That was a Backup Monster show with Alan Conboy from the Scale Computing. Looking forward for the next episode. Alan, last time, really appreciate your time. Thank you. Have a great day. And for all of you who is watching us, keep safe and see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.